Welcome to Food for Thought podcast. I'm your host, Colleen Patrick-Goudreau. I'm dispensing with our opening music to cut right to the chase. Today's episode is a special announcement about a new feature on the Food for Thought podcast that involves you, and that is a new Joyful Vegan Hotline. As you may or may not know, a number of the podcast topics I choose are because of questions I receive from you, my listeners and followers, either via email or through social media or from my podcast supporters, etc. And they're typically unsolicited, but sometimes I ask you directly for topics you'd like me to cover based on experiences you've had or interactions you've had with people in the non-vegan world that we all live in. Sometimes you ask me questions because you're contemplating becoming vegan. I get a range of questions, and sometimes they make their way into topics for this podcast. I love answering your questions directly. It's one of my favorite parts of speaking engagements. I love the Q&A. I love answering your questions. I love to hear about your personal stories. But I also know that because so many of these issues are universal, I know your questions and your dilemmas or your issues, whatever they are, and hopefully my answers will help more than just you. They will help everyone who's listening. That goes when I'm in an audience and I'm doing a live talk. Obviously, the person who's asking a question, when I'm answering it, I'm not just answering that person's question. I'm not just directing my answer to that person who asked it. I know that everybody in that audience would benefit from hearing what the response is, right? So that's the idea. These are universal issues. And I think one of the things I'm good at is being able to take that specific issue you're having and apply it to everyone who may be listening. Now, many years ago, you may remember we had a special feature on this podcast whereby you could call in live on a particular day of the week and ask me your question directly. I would have conversations with people, and I included the conversation in the podcast. I wasn't able to continue doing that, but I'm bringing back a version of it that I think will be much more sustainable and fun and effective and give you a voice on this podcast. It's essentially a what would you do vegan hotline. People ask me all the time, what would you do? What do you say when, etc. It's basically our own Joyful Vegan Hotline where you call in with a particular question or issue you'd like me to address on the Food for Thought podcast. Your recorded question then gets played here on the podcast, so your voice. So by virtue of you leaving a message or a question, you know that it may end up in a podcast. It's not guaranteed, but it may. And then I answer your question as part of that special segment here at Food for Thought. I would encourage you to keep your questions short and succinct and to the point, but of course, it's always helpful to have some context. So be yourself, be comfortable, and let me know what you got. Of course, you can be anonymous, but it's nice. It's more personal to have a first name. You just have to leave your first name. You don't have to leave your whole name, or you can just not leave a name at all. And it can be a question about anything you want, anything at all about food, cooking, animals, wildlife, zero waste, travel, sustainability, nutrition, communication, community, all the things I talk about in this podcast and in my books and on social media, whatever you want to ask about, anything you're struggling with, anything you're grappling with, or anything you just want my opinion on. This also opens up the opportunity to non-vegans. I invite you wherever you are on your journey. You might be on the fence and you want to ask me a question that might help you kind of step over into the vegan world. That sounds so weird, but right, like wherever you are in your journey, please feel free to ask me. The options really are endless and they're up to you in terms of what you ask. There's no guarantee, as I said, that your question will wind up on the podcast, but it's very possible that it will, of course, followed by my answer. Now, questions from Patreon supporters at $20 a month and above, they take precedence. That is, I will consider those questions first because look, no matter what you ask, you know me well enough to know that I'm going to take the time to answer as thoughtfully and thoroughly as I can. So your contribution goes toward my time and research. It always has, it always does. And this is another way that your Patreon support as a patron, your patronage, helps me help you and help the general public. And even if you're a $20 a month patron and you don't ask a question or have it answered, you're subsidizing this service for others. So head over to patreon.com/Colleen Patrick-Goudreau. Please become a patron or increase your patronage to $20 a month and above, which you can pledge monthly. But remember, paying up front for the year at whatever level you choose is really the best thing you can do. So choose the annual option if you can. I am incredibly grateful to all of you who listen, who support. We haven't done love letters in a really long time, but those love letters, they have not ceased. The responses I get from you, the public, who tell me and share with me things that, I don't walk around saying them, but the last few weeks, even in terms of like the emails I have gotten from listeners, and in person, I have met so many people. Every time I go to a restaurant in these last few weeks, I encounter someone who comes up to me and tells me that my work has changed their lives. It just doesn't get any better than that. And these are just random strangers. I have no idea when I walk into a place that someone is going to come and basically make my day, telling me what they have gained from this work. So it is incredibly humbling, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. And I've got a lot more to say. I'm working on a really fun series on gray areas that I get asked about a lot. I'll leave that there. So what do you think? I am super excited about this. I hope you are too. You can call anytime. Are you ready? You got to write this number down. I'm going to put this in the podcast description as well, and it'll be on my website. The number is 925-388-6171. I don't have any special 800 call me. So just write this down, 925-388-6171. 925-388-6171. What am I doing? You could just hit back, hit your 15-second back button and you can hear it again. So you'll hear my voice inviting you to leave a message, and I will personally be listening to your message. You can call anytime from wherever you are. Your voicemail goes to a private voicemail system that nobody hears but me, but of course everybody will hear it once it plays. So just again, know that this will wind up on a possible podcast episode. My personal phone doesn't ring, so it doesn't matter what time of day you call, what time of night, it doesn't matter. So just call. You can call and leave some love. Maybe someday we'll have a new podcast episode called Love Letters, like the ones I used to do annually, but they're all voiced by you. That would be lovely, and you can hear other voices instead of me just reading the letters. So call and leave some love, but call and leave a question if you want me to answer it. And the idea is for you to have a way to contact me directly with your own personal question or dilemma or comment, and to know that your question and my response may very well help the hundreds of thousands of people who listen. That is another bonus. So again, the number to call is 925-388. That is Charlie. It's lunchtime. 925-388-6171. And go to patreon.com/Colleen Patrick-Goudreau, where you can help make this possible and enjoy the perks of A, supporting this service, and B, giving your own personal question a little bump up to the front of the line. I can't wait to hear from you. Please visit JOYFULVEGAN.com, where you can also find my new store, where you can buy signed copies of my books. You can register for cooking classes. You can register for the 30-Day Vegan Challenge online program. Visit me on social media, especially Instagram and Facebook, and visit JOYFULVeganTrips.com. Our last spot for Botswana 2022 just got snatched up, so it's definitely 100% sold out. Rwanda just got a couple more signups, but there's still time. So if you'd like to join me for a trip of a lifetime, go over to JOYFULVeganTrips.com and take a look at the Rwanda trip. And we already have Northern Italy 2023, which is half sold out already, and Tuscany 2023 waiting for you to join. So JOYFULVeganTrips.com. Talk to you soon, or I'll hear from you soon. For the animals, this is Colleen Patrick-Goudreau. Thanks for listening.